just like that, it's Wednesday night.
Right? Brought to you by Mr. Waff Racing.
Yeah.
And he's on his way to the Big Sky. He's going to Montana Drag and Drive right now. He's actually on the road. That thing at 75 miles an hour with a VRS and overdrive and everything, he's cooking out, towing a trailer about 14 miles to the gallon.
And that's a big block, right?
No, that's a big small block. It's a 412 cubic inch engine, making 600 horsepower, and he's doing that. So he's getting mileage.
That's not bad at all.
That's not bad
That's
at
actually
all.
pretty good, yeah.
It's not bad at all.
Well, and here it is, Wednesday Night Tech Talk Live, the only tech talk show on all of YouTube's that actually answers your questions live.
Yep.
So, and we'll give you real tech information. Okay, so kicking it off from the top, Twisted Mopar Garage was in here at 6:06 p.m. Bruce Kultgen, Colleen Tebow, Greg Roberts was here. Finally, Wednesday Night Tech Talk, the best show on YouTube. I threw in the YouTube part. Okay, I figured it had to be YouTube because that's where we're at.
Right.
Miss Gadgie, Mohawk 62, Lumpy Wi-Fi B, Bruce Kultgen is here. Racer Ray is here, and Racer Ray says switch pitch. Fab Race Mod Repeat is here from the Fab Race Mod Repeat layer. And Kerosene Cucumbers. I'll tell you something interesting. Fab Race Mod Repeat, Chris Cox told me that he is now self-employed.
Ooh, congratulations, man.
Yeah, I'm not going to say what he's doing yet because I don't know if he's released that to the world, but he is now self-employed.
That's always a big step, man. I've been there, and I think that's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Kerosene Cucumbers, the greatest name in all of YouTube, is here. Let's see. I'm scrolling down. Clayton's Toolbox is here. Dan's Garage is here. Paul Pahui, which we haven't seen in a little while. He said, "Good evening, Switch Pitch Gang." Levi's Backyard's Performance is here to stir up some dirt about the Triple Crown, I'm sure, because it looks like he's going to have the heifer ready to rock and roll. Yes. SSR Performance is here for sure to stir up the dirt with the Triple Crown. And Mexican Spec is here. Dust Devil Garage. And I haven't seen Dust Devil in a couple of weeks. So, howdy. Welcome back. Bigfoot's and Mopar's Mark is here. And I think that's it for the evening. Well, not for the evening. That's it. Who's in the chat at the moment? So, whenever you guys come up with some questions to ask for Tech Talk Live.
Well, I got to tell you, man, I've been busy I took those 5 days off, and I got more done on my car than you could ever imagine. Just by, instead of like 2 days, like you have 1 day to do your chores around the house and you get 1 day to work on the car. This day, I literally had 4 days of straight. I got all my honeydews done, and then 4 days of nothing but car. And I've got to the point now where it's coming along to the point where I'm actually putting parts on that are not coming back off. That's amazing.
Well, I'm busy working on Clint's Buick 300, his long rod Buick 300 combo. So I'm trying to get that together. I've also been dabbling with some work on my 63 Buick. I know I'm not going to make it to the No Name Nationals without something drastically changing, like money. That's what I was trying to explain today. Okay, so if you don't have any money and you have plenty of time, it's just like having plenty of money, right? Because you can make whatever you need. But if you don't have plenty of money and you don't have plenty of time, your options are really limited.
Very limited.
And so that's why I elected to just go ahead and bow out now for being there for Triple Crown. I will be there for sure, but it'll be something else. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do, but I think I might pivot and I might just call my shot like Babe Ruth, and I'm going to murder the burnout competition with the Lemons car.
That sounds like a plan, dude, because that exhaust pipe coming out the side could be aimed exactly just right with some propane injection into that and have a fire going straight up into the sky. Would be
I don't
awesome.
think it doesn't go straight up in the sky. It's got to it's like side pipes, right?
Yeah, but just, I mean, it's flex pipe, right?
Oh yeah. You know that when we took it up for Lemons Tech, that was the biggest problem they had with the car, was that exhaust pipe. The rule states the exhaust must exit behind the driver, okay? And so if you have never seen the Lemons car, oh man, it's like Mad Max level, because it was just make it fit and work, right? There was no other thought put into how did it look or anything like that. It was fit and function. And we got one of the exhaust manifolds flipped around because it's got this goofy steering box in the way, and it runs essentially like a bullhorn out the front fender, and then uses flex pipe all the way up and around the tire, the wheel well, and then down underneath the door with a cherry bomb on it. And when we dropped it off for tech, the guys were like, "Oh, dude, that's got to go." And I'm like, well, "What rule is it breaking?" Well, technically, it's not breaking any rules. It's just the exhaust is external. And I said, "Well, the exhaust is external on every car, right?" And he's like, "Well, what do you mean by that?" I said, "It doesn't matter if it's under the car or on top of the car or on the side of the car. It's still external. You can't run it through the driver's compartment, right?" Yeah. And so he was like, "Well, you got me there." And he's like, well, "What happens if everybody runs into it?" I'm like, "What happens if they hit the tire? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
What does it matter?" And so he's like, "Well, it has to exit behind the driver." And I'm like, "It has a cutoff tailpipe that's exactly 6 inches behind the driver." And so they didn't like that. So they just were like, "Well, okay, on principle alone, we're just going to remove it. Like you can't run that." And that was like the biggest eye-catching thing when somebody sees that car the first time, where they gravitate towards it. Like, dude, that is 100% bitching.
That is me too. I said the same thing.
And the sad part is he's like, you can't run the exhaust like that. And I'm like, well, Duesenberg's did, and so did like Cords and that weird stuff that they made in the 80s that looked like Cords. Like Remington Steele drove a car with flexi pipe on the outside for exhaust. But
Clint Toolbox is saying 1994 GMC 5.0 with a 4L60 runs well after a few minutes. It wants to stall. If I give it throttle, it'll recover and run good again. I replaced all kinds of stuff. Any ideas? I'm a carb guy normally. I'm telling you, on those, just check the fuel pressure on those. They don't run very high. I think if that's a throttle body, which I believe
it's TBI.
Yeah. Don't they run at like 15 pounds of pressure or something like that? It's in like 25.
No, it's less than that. I think it's 8 to 12.
It's 8. Okay, I thought
it's not very much.
Yeah, it's very low. But usually 90% of the time, that was when I was a tech, that's exactly what would happen on those things. They just wouldn't have enough fuel pressure or fuel flow. They would idle, they would do everything, and then with the enrichment, it'd be fine. But the second you start driving, it just power would go down. That's the first thing I would check, because that's what I've seen.
I'll tell you what I know about these. Okay, first things first. 94, 95 Chevy GMC trucks are literally a forever vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
That TBI is reliable as sunrise. They're not fast. They don't make gobs of power, but they start and run every time you hit the key, more often than not.
That's
okay.
Great.
Now, generally, when you start having problems with them, it's always this kind of problem. It's a fuel-related issue.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 major things on these fuel systems. And I'm a carb guy too, by heart, but I mean, I know EFI because it's been around long enough that I've had to screw with it. But it's generally the fuel pump, the fuel pressure regulator, or the fuel system's filled with crap. Okay. And generally, when the fuel system's filled with crap, it'll take out the pump or the fuel pressure regulator. That's what you normally find. Okay. So what you can do, though, is easily just go on over to Rock Auto, buy a rebuild kit for that TBI. I try to buy the GM stuff just because, the gaskets will exactly fit. But it doesn't matter which one you get. They're all pretty much the same. They're just a couple of O-rings, some gaskets, and a fuel pressure regulator diaphragm. And you can pull that TBI off in a matter of minutes. It's just like a carburetor. Matter of fact, it's an electronic carburetor is what it is.
Exactly what it is, yeah.
And pull that sucker off. You can disassemble it on your kitchen table. If you want, you can buy some new injectors. That's the first thing I do with the TBI is put new injectors in it, because you don't know what quality of gasoline's been running through that thing, and you'll have an idea of how bad the fuel system is when you pop that thing apart, because there'll be rust streaks inside or not.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like either that fuel pressure regulator is taking a crap and it's not regulating fuel correctly up at the throttle body, or the pump itself is weak. And usually, if it's still working and you can hear it coming on with the key, most likely what's happened is that rubber hose in the tank that connects the pickup to the actual pump itself may have developed a crack or a hole in it over time, and now it's drawing air.
Yeah, there should be a Schrader valve on that, and you can get one of those fuel press testers from like Harbor Freight for like $15. Literally start it up, put that on there, and that will tell you everything you need to know. Rev it up a few times. If that thing just drops, that means then start looking downstream for a fuel-related issue, because like Dallas was saying, it's literally going to only be a fuel problem. It could be injector, but if the fuel pressure drops, you know it's not the injector. Look downstream, and that's what.
So, and here's the trap that everyone falls in when you're talking about EFIs. First things first, they'll go buy all the sensors and they'll replace them. If you don't have a check engine light, it is not an EFI problem.
Nope.
Okay, it is either a mechanical problem feeding the fuel injection, or it's a fuel-related issue. Normally, if you rev it up, they won't fall on their face because they're really not using any fuel when you just rev it up in gear, right? Yeah. Or in park. When you put it in gear and put it under load, that's when you start noticing all these problems, because it can't deliver the volume of fuel that's needed for the system to operate correctly. And the reason why it's running like shit after a few minutes is because what happens is it gets warm, and then the engine coolant temperature sensor sends that thing into closed loop to where it starts reading the O2 sensor. So then it leans her out, goes out of choke mode. It leans her out, and then you start having all these problems because it doesn't understand that there's either a fuel pressure issue, or the regulator's not working correctly, or the pump is failing. And it can't diagnose those. And it won't generally throw a check engine light for that stuff. When it starts to stumble and miss, these early systems are OBD1, and they don't have like a self-diagnostic system like you would have in today's computer. Like it's misfire on cylinder number 4. You know, it doesn't have any of that. It just reads like it's a dumb animal. Okay, it's literally reading exhaust temperatures. Yeah. If the exhaust temperature is off, like it has a misfire, they'll read fat, and then they'll lean it out more. So that's how dumb it is, right? So definitely, if you don't have a check engine light, start looking at fuel pressure issues or fuel volume issues.
One more thing too is that if it just happened all of a sudden, or it was a rapidly gradual onset, look at like vacuum leaks, like rubber hoses. Yeah, look at those, because I've seen that too, where it's like on your power brake booster. I sometimes disconnect that, put a cap on it. But the fuel pressure is the easiest thing to check. Because that will tell you everything. If it's not that, and it's still revving up, and then you start capping off things, and it's fine, then you know it's a vacuum leak. But between those two things, if you have no check engine light, don't even throw sensors at it. It's going to be, like Dallas said, mechanical, or I'm usually 100% on the fuel thing, because that's exactly what everyone I've ever had a problem with has been a fuel-related issue, delivery issue.
Oh, Valiant Adventure Drive says Tanner's on his way home, so he'll be watching in a minute, I think. All right, well, that's good. We'll be looking forward to him showing up.
Yeah.
And Paul Pahui says, I enjoyed seeing how you set up your hydraulic clutch, Shane.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks, man. Yeah, that was the stop was I'm telling you, that was a stroke of genius, because it has to stop, right? There has to be a stop for it. Uh-huh. It just happened to be that the 4 bolts that hold on the master cylinder adapter is the exact 3/8 course thread as the bump stops on my car. So I have different height bump stops for the Cookie Monster, so that way I can get different, rays out of it. It just happened to be that the factory one put in there and screwed in there with a lock nut is the exact length bump stop that I need. So literally,
so you don't bottom out the master cylinder, right?
I don't bottom out the master cylinder, and it's got exactly 1 1/8 inch of travel on the rod, and so the brake adjustable rod just came in, so that way I can set the height of those pedals exactly where I want it to be, so that way it'll be nice and comfortable for me to ride. Because that's the only reason why I didn't want to go with factory ones. Is factory ones always are just a little too high up. I like them down just a little bit, and that's why I got some aftermarket ones. But I think I can adjust them, because I like right now the clutch, the brakes here and the throttle pedal will be here. If they're like this, I like to have the brake a little closer so that way I can sidestep it a little easier with my foot.
Well, we got our I don't know, weekly reminder from SSR Performance with the E85 question mark.
Negative.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah,
All right.
Negative. That's a big negative. You know, we should start doing that. So that was about 7 minutes in. So that's the new, instead of switch pitch, now it's E85. Ah, never. Yeah,
The
E85 is
Mexican
great.
spec is saying, yeah, could Clayton's problem be a vacuum problem? It could be a vacuum leak. Those early systems, that's the two things that they don't deal with. Anything mechanical, they have such a hard time with. E80 or E85. Oh my God, I got E85 on my brain. Vacuum leaks and fuel delivery issues.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, so that spec is right on this, especially if it's sat for any period of time. That literally, those rubber boots will just crack, and it just.
Well, and in '94, they were not made for any ethanol in the fuel at all.
Yeah, and especially a couple backfires will take out that brake booster, that little rubber grommet that's inside there, and it's done. I see.
KS Skyhawk says Wednesday night tech talk is really like old home week, a place where friends gather to shoot shit and maybe learn something. Yeah, I hope so.
That's good.
I like to learn. I mean, what last week we learned quite a bit.
Oh, here he goes. Clayton, he had those problems with the TBI mount gasket sucked in and was leaking. So there you go. Yeah. So, take a look at that. If you check the fuel pressure, spray some carb cleaner around while it's running, see if it gets higher or lower or kills it.
Oh, Valiant Adventure says I backed my Valiant into the concrete base of a light pole at the parking lot of my job this morning. That does not sound very pleasant.
That sounds
cool. How much damage?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I think the on my pedals, the neutral safety switch, technically, when you push the clutch in, that was the hardest thing to fabricate, where it should sit and still have room and access to it. I was telling Dallas that literally took all day. That was just that one little mount took all day because there was in 3 different spots, and it just never seemed to line up right where I could access it. But where it's at now, just is what it is.
Clayton's Toolbox is asking, ignition control module possible? No. Now, I don't think so, because generally when those things have an ignition control issue, they don't even start.
Yeah.
They won't even start and run. They just fall on their face, like not even running, right? So, and usually when they fail, so the TBIs were like the first vehicles I ever seen that went over like 100,000 miles regularly, right?
Yeah.
And well, no, I take that back. The 5-liter Ford stuff, and then the TBI GMs. But what happens to those is distributor. If you've noticed for the TBI, they made it a lot smaller, but it's essentially still an HEI. So it just has a remote mounted module.
Coil, yeah.
And then it has a remote mounted coil.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then the distributor itself is virtually just an HEI module. But what happens is those contact points in there, the bushing in the center holding the center shaft will wear out. And those they're not contacts, they're just magnetic pickup points. Yeah. They'll actually collide with each other and demagnetize themselves
by heat.
And then they're done. They won't work at all. The thing won't even start up and run. And usually, I've already had that happen on my S10. It just left me stranded. I was driving it, parked it, went out to get in, wouldn't start.
Yep. And that's actually what happened on my motorhome. Is it had an ignition module that was external. It was like on the intake, and they either run or they stop running. That's it. There is no in between on those. They just literally stop running.
That's what's good about them too, is they're very reliable. They're like an HEI distributor. It's virtually the same system, but it's now external of the cap, and they did that because of the heat.
Yeah, I have a module on my green car, and I've had the exact same module on it since 2017. It's been on there for 9 years. The same module, because I have it it's cooled well, because I have an aluminum heat sink on it, and then I have it grounded well. And if you have those two things and you have a constant, voltage going to it that doesn't backfeed or anything like that, I have a diode in there too. It will never have an issue. Literally, it will just never have an issue.
Oh, let's see.
Oh, what is the really good glue to use when installing new carpet? Man, I'm telling you, I have this. Is it 777? Oh, I think it's what is the number. It's a 777. It's a high tack, and I got it from Home Depot. And man, let me tell you, that stuff works. It literally is just, it's like you put it down, it's better be in the right spot because it's staying there. I think it's 777. I don't know.
I just used a good old Permatex orange can. But
Oh, you,
how I do it.
for new carpet, they use that. Use that.
The headliner glue.
Oh,
I
the
don't glue my carpet in most of the time, but that orange Permatex headliner glue works for everything. And I mean, it's good stuff. You put it on both surfaces, let it tack up a little bit, and then pow, it's there forever. I promise.
I try to buy everything that for my car at Home Depot because it's about 50% less. They have a car aisle now,
I
and
know.
I get the 2.5 gallons of the T5 Dello, right? Or I'm not
All
telling
right.
Rotella T. It's $59 there, and it's 79 at O'Reilly's. The exact same one.
I get the 5 gallon jug from or it's not 5 gallons, it's
Two and a half.
2.5 gallon, yeah.
Yep.
But it's the same price over at Tractor Supply, and I get the
Oh,
Rotella T6.
yeah. So ours here is the same price at Tractor Supply as it is at the auto parts store, but our Home Depot, it's 20 to 30
Yep.
bucks less on average.
Oh,
So,
I
and I
was
buy all my high tack, like my red grease high tack, all
yeah.
my WD-40. Everything is. Sometimes at Walmart it's cheaper, but literally Home Depot is cheaper across the board.
We need to address this elephant in the room right here. Okay, Dylan Levi saying, curious why the weight addition for DIS ignition. Old heifer is going to be heavy. First off, we need to address how you interpret heavy because you
Right.
have bought the lightest truck on the planet. And I don't care if you've added quarter-inch steel plate to the quarter panel, that truck still weighs less than everything else that's going to line up at the track.
And it's only 100 pounds.
Yeah. So the DIS ignition, the reason why that has a penalty is because that ignition works perfectly every time. If you had a mechanical ignition, which is like points or HEI or whatever, it doesn't always work every time exactly the way it's supposed to. And so the whole idea behind that is since you have the perfect timing curve, the other cars don't. So we tried to make it an even keel.
Yeah.
And that was the whole idea behind it.
Yeah, and whatever you're going to gain as far as having a ignition map, per se, you're going to lose because of the 100 pounds. Is really how I was looking at it. Is that most people like Dallas are going to lock out the ignition, or it's going to be like at 10 degrees, so it's going to be sitting there idling at like say 25, and then it's all in by 2000, and it's got its thing. Where you could have it a whole map on how it's going to run. So that was the thought process for me. Now he says that it'll be 100 pounds lighter than the Laguna approximately. It's 9 pounds per cubic inch. I mean, everyone's got the same thing.
Yeah, well, if you got to run the weight, however many cubic inch you got. What 364? He's running a 6 liter.
I don't. I think it. Yeah. So that's going to be on the heavy side. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's going to have to weigh a certain amount. I mean, get your hole saw out, brother.
Times up by 9. Yeah, it's 3276. That's down the track.
Yeah, get your hole saw out and try to move some weight around the best you can. I mean,
Pounds on that, so it's going to be 3376.
there's nothing lighter than a hole.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And he's saying that O'Reilly's will price match any store. I honestly didn't know that, but was it not Harbor Freight, but Home Depot is actually riding distance on my bicycle, so that's another plus is I can ride there. And to go to O'Reilly's, Dallas went with me one time. I have to cross over. There's only one way to get there if you use a light. The other ways, you're basically making a left-hand turn across 6-lane traffic road into a hammer lane, so it's just not worth it.
Yeah. Well, and he's saying it's going to be 100 pounds lighter than the Laguna. I don't think that's true. Those trucks, Okay, you're using the square body S10, right? Am I the only person that watched Cletus's video where they cleaned that sucker out and they had those guys put a roll cage in it and the truck weighed like 2,200 pounds?
Saw the same video. Yes.
Yeah. So
And
I don't care like what you're adding into that thing. You did not add 2,000 pounds. So your interpretation of heavy, I believe, is seriously skewed. Or you just want to cry uncle easy.
now he's saying, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because we're talking about Z. So it's going to require 3,500 pounds. I don't know if I can even make that it weigh that much. I'll try. 3,500 pounds, but how are you getting that? Because the maximum would be 368. So let's just say here the maximum is 368 times up by 9 plus 100 pounds. I mean, that's 3,412. And it's definitely not a 368. So I don't know. But everyone's got the same thing. It's got to be this weight for this cubic inches.
Well, and doesn't he have a weight penalty for having a single 4-barrel now?
Oh yeah. If he's got a weight penalty for a single 4-barrel,
well, he's got to weigh 3,500 probably.
Yeah, so he's probably got to weigh 35. Oh, that's right, because you got the 35. Yeah, single 4-barrel.
Yeah. Should have put a tunnel ram on that sucker.
Put a tunnel ram on it.
All right. KS Skyhawk saying, Dallas, did you catch Jim says TA SP1 intake test flow? All I've ever heard was it was no better than stock 4-barrel. So much for that. I've heard that too, but I've always had really good luck with those TA dual planes. So I have not seen that video. I just 2 days ago, I think I saw the 350 Buick where they started it up and it was a dog compared to the when they bought it, which I replied on there and let's let them know, hey, if you guys want to reach out, I will help you get that sucker tuned in because I'm certain the magic is in the things that they're not used to, like the oil pump. They probably got a high volume pump in there. It's got all the small passages. They haven't opened anything up, and it's just sucking horsepower right off the front.
Now, wait a second. The 4-barrel, isn't it? They don't get a weight. They don't get a weight break. There just is no weight penalty. So on the 4-barrel. So the 4-barrel was that they got 100 pounds off. Now they just don't. It's not they have to add 100 pounds. They just don't have the 100-pound weight extra. I think that's what it is. So he doesn't have to add 100 pounds for the 4-barrel. It's just that it's not there anymore. I didn't have them add 100. It was just to take away the 100-pound weight break for the single 4-barrel.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're right. I'm looking at it right now. It's talking about engine weight brakes, single spread bore, 200 pounds, DIS ignition, 100. Add 100 pounds.
Yeah, add 100. So you're only adding 100 pounds because of your ignition system. Other than that, so it was the first one. So that's all your
3419. Then it has to weigh.
Yeah. That's not bad, man. So that's not bad at all. And everyone's doing the same thing. So, did you hear this? Is this true? O'Reilly's and Napa are joining forces.
I saw that the other day. I didn't see that they're joining forces. I saw that O'Reilly was buying out Napa.
Oh, okay.
But it's all in talks right now. Nothing's happened. And I'm going to tell you right now, Napa was the biggest holdout for made in Chinesium parts.
Yes.
In about 2010, 12, 14, somewhere around there, they finally just gave in. And I have not had a good brake part from them since. I hate to see this happen because O'Reilly's truly is the king of Chinesium garbage.
Oh, I know that.
And I try not to shop there at all.
The only reason why I shop there is because I got a commercial account in 2005. So literally every vehicle I have has got a lifetime warranty from that. And it wasn't even O'Reilly's. I think it was still Kragen at that point, but it just transferred from Kragen to O'Reilly's. And I've had that account and it's on the best tier. So I'm kind of stuck with it because all the cars that I own all take the same master cylinders, all take the same parts. And my truck has literally been fixed with O'Reilly's parts or Kragen parts for this whole time. So it's hard to go somewhere else where I have all these warranties. And even that master cylinder I made a short about, that was one that was new on the shelf that I had. And I didn't like the vacuum brakes. I was going to put it on. Right now's the best time. And I'm on number 3, and every single one leaked. And I just said, you know what, screw it. I'm not going to mess with it anymore. I'm going to use the one that works.
LC2 Kid here is saying that heads up on Wix oil filters. They were made in Mexico around COVID time. They have metal shavings in the threads. Check the country they're made in. Several are still around or maybe on shelves. So it sounds like maybe Wix has gone downhill. Maybe they're Chinese now.
Yeah. In fact, there's a guy who does nothing but check filters and all that stuff. I forget who did it, but they built they used carbon dust, and they were running these through the filters. And I was a big Wix guy, and I used to run the Napa Gold or the Platinum filters. But I recently moved to Mobil 1 because they actually have the best filtration and keeping the flow up the highest, and they're not made in China.
Yeah, so it sounds like if you want quality stuff, Mobil 1 is your go-to for the oil filter, and the plugs NGK all the way.
Yeah,
because you can't buy a good plug at all these days.
Yeah, so he says that it's 200 pounds lighter, so 3,400 pounds. Sorry, basically 3,376. So yeah, there you go.
Racer Ray is saying, wait, what? Single carb adds 100 pounds? No, that was a mistake on my part.
Yeah,
it's just they don't have a weight break any longer.
Legal. Oh no, yeah. So, and there was another person up here saying that as an ex-employee of O'Reilly's, I can attest that they do not price match, because I never knew that.
They do price match. He says that they do.
Oh, they do.
It says right there in the comment that you have highlighted.
Oh, okay.
Mohawk saying his O'Reilly's won't price match anymore.
Got it.
And then, Vintage Adventure Drive saying that they will.
Okay, well, I will check on that, because, I mean, yeah. Oh, here's one right here. Any tips assembling AN lines? I'm having trouble assembling mine. I do. It's called Cool Tools, and I have them all for all the different ANs. I can literally make an AN line in about 3 minutes. Second thing, go down and get a set of loppers from the electrical aisle. Do not cut it with a wheel, because it frays out everything. I have a set of loppers that literally cuts it like an electrical cable, and it makes a clean snip. And then with the Cool Tool, you can it just puts the end cap on it, and it's super simple. And then I just use some silicone or WD-40 when I spin it in there. It's simple.
Well, AN lines, okay, everybody's going to hate me here after I say this. Just like Shane, I don't cut them with any tools. They fray so bad that you'll end up bleeding out before you get the ferrule on the end.
Yep.
Okay. The best way to do this is I went right every time I got to do AN lines. If it's stainless steel braided, I go right over to Harbor Freight. I buy a set of metal shears, and I literally cut it with the metal shears, and then I trim it just like you're cutting hair, like scissors. Like go around it, make sure it's nice and smooth. And you just want the metal shears, like I can't remember what they call them. They got that green handle, red handle, yellow handle, the straight cut one. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
I think that's what they are, is just metal shears.
That's exactly mine are made for a cable, like big electrical cables.
No, I know what you're talking about. I just I don't own that tool.
Oh, okay,
and those metal shears you can buy at any Harbor Freight. You want to buy it, and then when you're done with it, literally throw it in the recycle bin, because those stainless steel braids will mar that shear up so bad you could not cut a Q-tip with them suckers. Okay, they will be destroyed, but it will cut them. And you can use it to cut pretty much, I bet probably 20 to 30 fittings before they're junk. I'm under this philosophy: buy once, cry once. I went to Home Depot and I bought the Klein style. I have two different versions. I have the small one and I have the bigger one for like the Dash 10 or the 12. And I've had those for 10 years. And literally you put them in there, you lop it, and it cuts it clean with no frays, no nothing. And it's like a little pinch. And then I just take a pair of needle nose and I crimp it back like that, just so that way it's not in a pinch anymore. And then I take that
the Cool Tool end piece on it, and it literally just spins right on.
I try to do those lines. All right, there's a thing called natural lay of the cable.
Mhm.
When they make those stainless braided lines, when you cut the end on it, it doesn't affect the natural lay unless you start hammer on it and like binding and pinching it all up, right? If you just cut through them, they're sharp metal shears. They will cut through those and you just get started, cut that end. And then you can literally just put a little bit of machine oil in that ferrule and just twist it on. If you do the right cut, you can do it piece of cake with the shears. If you buy the shears like Shane is saying, you buy once, cry once, they are expensive, but I'm telling you, every time you want to do one of those things, those lines, it is such a pain in the ass. You got 12 fingers band-aided up and you don't even have 12. I mean, they're bad. Those things will mutilate a human being.
Yeah. And on a Dash 10, on a Dash 8, I don't even have to use the Cool Tool part. If I cut it with my shear, an 8 and a 10 and a 12, I can literally spin it on by hand because it shears it so well. It's really for the Dash 4 and the Dash 6 because they're just at that right size where they have to crimp in just a little bit to get inside that little piece, and it's a little harder.
Well, I always found when it's a smaller line like that, that it's easier to flex the shear than it is to cut through that line because it's all bound up in one small little space, right? Yep. So that shear has a problem cut through evenly and cleanly, and not just Shane's, but any of them. When you get the line that small, it's not spread over a large area, right? So it tries to deflect the tool, and that causes it where it's like gnarly cuts and all that stuff. If you do it like where the line bends inside the tool, just stop right there and move to another section and start cutting that in.
There was a 100-pound weight break for spread bore. Is that gone now? No, I think that's still there.
It's still there. It's actually, didn't I just look at it as 200 pounds?
I think it's 200 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the whole idea was to promote people to do things that were out of the ordinary.
Yeah. That's
right?
exactly right.
Because it's simple to just grab a 4150 and throw it on there. Matter of fact, Shane sells them every day. A 4150 style carburetor. But it takes skill to do multiple carbs and a single spread bore, make that work in a racing application. Yep. And it was more or less like the spread bore deal was Thermoquad and Quadrajet. We were trying to promote people to use stuff that was out of the ordinary.
Buick Smith saying, Dallas, I commented on Jim's auto video to come here tonight and ask questions about the Buick build. And we'll see if he shows up. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I'm with John on this one.
Well, there was the last of the good parts stores. Nothing's happened yet. It's just all in talks. And I'd hate to see O'Reilly's buy Napa. And if I had a say on it, man, I would be like, I guess you can probably go over to Napa's website and send them a message. Do not merge with O'Reilly's. We're fucked then.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And the thing I liked about Napa's is they were all independent, at least how they are even right here. They'll have like 5 or 6 that are in the same family. And so you can, the one that was in Poway was owned by the one then, they had different like little hubs. And
what I liked when I was a kid, they had Western Auto. Okay. Yeah. And that was like that was the cheapy chain across the country at that time. All right. Western Auto, but Western Auto used to sell you guns and all kinds of stuff way back in the day. Mm-hmm. But when I got out to San Diego, they had Schucks, Cragen, and
we didn't have Schucks. We had Cragen because there was Schucks and Checkers. It was Cragen, Chief Auto
Parts. But they were all merged together. It was Schucks and Cragen and something was Checkers. All merged. Checkers.
Yeah, it was Checkers. Those were merged, but it was Cragen in California or on the West Coast, and then they had then you had Chief Auto Parts, then you had Napa, and then you had there was one more. Was it CarQuest? CarQuest.
I guess so. But I always liked the Cragen
Yep.
deal. It was Kragen and Schooks and something on Checker. They had a different style ran store than everybody else.
Yep. That's why I
right?
got my account there. Exactly.
They used to have. Here's what was cool about that. I mean, like, this is already the chain supply. Like the chain car parts store. Okay, the days of the mom and pop car parts store were pretty much the early 90s.
Yep.
That was the end of those, where you could go in, and Bubba, who's worked there for 20 years, knew the part number off the top of his head. He knew it interchanged with XD, XX, and X, and he knew exactly where it was at on the shelf. All that went away, and you got the chains. Kragen was a really good chain. They had an entire row. Like, you know how you go in there and you have parts like on stacked up on shelves? Kragen had an entire shelf dedicated to nothing but the Chilton's books.
Yep.
And you could buy a book for anything in that place.
Yeah. And what I liked about them too is they always had good, better, best, was their motto. So like you could go in there, and if you just had some guy, because I was working on cars at that time, they just wanted to get the car running. You just got the good. Then they had like the person who was like, I don't have a lot of money. I don't want to spend the best one, but I don't want to buy the cheap one. So they got the better, and then they had the best one, and there was 3 tiers for everything that they had, and that's why I liked it.
And they did. They had that good, better, best.
Yeah, they sure
But
did.
that's also the first place that I ran into parts with a Ford, FE Ford. I had the Mercury Cyclone, and it had this weird 3-toed starter that it only came on that application, right? And my God, I walked there. Okay. Like, if you've ever been to where I went to school in San Diego, I was in Point Loma. I was all the way out of what's Fleet ASW, is all the way at the very end of Harbor Drive.
Mhm.
Okay. And then I would have to walk down to Midway to the nearest Kragen.
Wow.
And I would have to buy a part and walk back. And I'm telling you, dude, I walked all the way down there. And, hey, I need a starter for a 66 Mercury. Okay, what's in it? Big block for 390 FE. Okay, come back. Here you go. Here's a starter. I'm like, I didn't think nothing of it. Here's my old core. I'll be back. Walked all the way back there. Pull it out of the box. It has 2 bolts holding the starter in. That's not 3. Right. I'm like, oh my God, now I gotta walk back and get my old starter, right? Because it had the 3, and I just swapped the nose cone in the parking lot, and then they didn't want to take it as a core. I'm like, they're going to rebuild it anyway. What's it matter?
Yeah.
But,
That's why I always pay the core, and I just bring back a part, so that way they can't. I just pay the core price, and then I bring it back. So, Tech, how off-center can an axle bearing be off-center and not cause problems? I can try squinting with dirty glasses, and it's all good. That really depends on a couple things, because I've actually narrowed a bunch of axles. Is how far the axle is, how far from center is out. But typically, on the ones that I do, you don't want to more than about 10 to 15 thousandths off as far as off-center. That's literally what it has on the Miter Brothers part. Is what it's telling you.
Mittler Brothers, yeah.
Mittler?
Yeah, Mittler.
Mittler? Yeah. I thought it was mine. Okay. Yeah, that's literally what it tells you in there. It's 10 to 15 thousandths off center on that. Now, but I would also say that is, they don't give you a distance on that, but for me, being an engineer, I know that the farther away, the less that's going to matter, because the angle is going to be different.
Yeah.
So,
if you think about it, that makes a lot of sense, because if you had an axle bearing, let's say it's 3 feet long, okay, and it's off 10 to 15 thousandths, you're talking 1-2 degrees, all right? But when you take it out and that sucker's 36 inches, or 36 inches, 30, well, we'll just say 4 feet long, 5 feet long, the further away you get from the center, the less that makes a difference.
Yeah, it's under a tenth of a degree. It won't make any difference at all.
Yeah.
So, really what it comes down to is I guess what they're saying is that if you can have the slug in the bearing, and that thing can fit in there without being forced in there, because there's a spec on the bearing to the axle housing, as long as it can go in there with that shaft on there and not have to be slammed in, it's going to be fine. And I found that 10 to 15 thousandths is literally click click. Okay, that's fine. It's good enough.
I think you can probably be off like quite a bit, like 60 thousandths. I'll tell you why. The old front loader rear ends, okay, the axle had to line up almost, like, think about it. You could put 2 gaskets on there to get it from leaking, and it still would work.
Yeah, that's right. And that's a ton of that's way off.
That's like 30 thousandths that gasket.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is, it's more or less the side loading of it. Probably the more it's off, I think you'd probably be fine with 30 thousandths or more.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I've
seen them with bit rear end axles that they're inches off.
Yeah.
And stuff still going down the road. So, of course, the bearing's not moved inches, but, technically it would be, right?
Yeah. But when you see a car dog legging down there, it's way off and it's still running. So I'm with Bigfoot on this one. Now all the parts stores are bought out. They can go from price matching to price gouging.
They're only going to price gouge the dumb people, right? Because Rock Auto is online and will always freaking undercut them. But now, once they buy out Rock Auto, that's a different story. But Napa just needs to get their shit together. And the sad part is, like, I got an O'Reilly's. It's like 5 miles away. I will only go there when it's something that I drastically have to get, okay, that I can't order ahead of time. And even if I can, I will normally drive. I have the O'Reilly's 5 miles, and then I have the entire Napa hub store for the whole entire East Coast.
That's
12 miles, right? So it's like, well, that's a no-brainer because I know I go to the hub for the whole East Coast. They're going to have the part I want, right? I never have to order anything. I literally walk out of there, and it's a warehouse like, I bet it's a mile long by a mile wide. It's humongous.
I like this one here. I'm moving ahead because we're getting a little farther behind. It says, Levi says, so during Triple Crown Tech, will the inspector prefer pizza, tacos, or donuts? Asking for a friend.
It's a good thing you didn't say hot dogs.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, man. So Fabrice Mod Repeat saying that cable cutters for multi-strand cable. That's what you're talking about.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yep. And he was talking about, he bought ones for $50 right here. And he got it for 20 years ago. I just happened to be an electrician, and I just had those Klein loppers. I had, small ones and big ones, but they weren't that crazy. I think they were like $75, and they literally cut better than the AN cutters. And you can get those at Home Depot, and they're literally just it's a Klein tool, and it's almost like. And then I have a mini ones that are Nipex. So the big loppers are Klein, but the small ones are Nipex, and that's that spring steel. And man, those things are just amazing. You can literally just by hand cut right through it. Yeah, and he says yes, the Dash 4s are definitely the hardest to assemble. 100%. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, that was way back in the day when you're doing nitrous. That's the only option you had was making them find yourself.
Yeah.
Mexican Spec says Pep Boys was in California. They were, and
that's right.
So was Kragen, and you had to go to the opposite side of town. That you know which one I'm talking about, to Midway.
Yep.
That had the Kragen there on Midway.
Yep.
Right by the Carl's Jr.
Yeah, I used to drag race there, and one of those auto parts store was open till midnight, and it was I forget which one it is. It was right there by the sports arena. Which one's that one?
That's Midway.
That's Midway.
Midway Kragen.
Yeah, that's the one. It was open till midnight, and they had a high performance section back there just behind the parking lot. And there was times where we'd be street racing, and we'd run out of nitrous, and we could go and fill it up at the Kragen high performance area. And that's back when nitrous was like $2 a pound.
Yeah, dude. I used to love nitrous in the 90s was like, or early 2000s. Oh my God, man. The best ticket around, because the whole nitrous kit, the whole kit was like $450, right? And it would turn your wheezing junkyard pile of crap into a fire-breathing dragon in a matter of seconds. And
I've ran, like, I know I talk about nitrous a lot, but here's the thing is that 100 and a 150 kit really don't do anything. It's when you hit that 200 number, that's when the car changes. Like a 150 can change, but 200 is when the car becomes a completely different car, and you're like, this is a street driver. I can drive it anywhere, but as soon as I hit that button, it is literally a race car now. Like that's the race car.
Well, and the other thing about it is it's not like the turbo, where the turbo will just continue to lay you back in the seat and keep making more and more and more power. This is hit you like a hammer.
Yeah, it's like a freight train hitting you in the back, bam, and you can feel it taper off because it's only putting X amount in, so it's the hardest at first, but the higher you RPM it starts going down. That's why I would tend to short shift it so I can get back.
I always short shifted it. I was like way short shifting a 302 Ford, right? Like $6,000. Everyone's like, what are you doing? Dude, I'm telling you, you rev it harder than that and it just noses over.
Yep, exactly. When I run nitrous in the Cookie Monster, instead of going to 75 or 8, I shipped it at 7,000 from 1 to 2 just to get back on the converter. And that's the fastest the car has been. Is if I take it to 7,500, it actually slows the car down by a tenth.
So Buick Smith saying, whatever happened to Champion Auto Parts? It was like a combo between Harbor Freight and Summit Racing. They even had their own how-to videos you could buy. That must have been a regional thing. I did not see them.
I don't remember that one. Oh, Dr. Go saying, Lola Car Show starts tomorrow. Vice Grip Garage and Flying Spark Garage YouTubers will be there. 55-acre swap, 4,000 swap vendors, several thousand cars, about 400 vehicles for sale. Car Corral.
Yeah, that's Iola. It's Iola, Iowa, I believe is what it is.
Oh, that's an I? Okay, I thought it was a logo.
Yeah, it looks that way, but it's an Iola.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's the big one the Vice Grip Garage hits every year.
No. That would be cool, man. We should make a pilgrimage sometime and do that one.
I think it would be cool. Like, what we need to do is start doing bucket list videos, car guy bucket list, right? Like, you remember, well, probably 3-4 years ago when we first started doing this. How long have we been doing it now? 4?
Yeah.
4 years? Okay. You remember when we first started, there was one thing I always wanted to do, which would be that would be the really cool videos, is like do the bucket list stuff. Yeah. Where you remember when I said, hey, I want to go to the Baja 1000. I want to stand there in the waterway where they're flat out coming off the road, right?
Yes.
And then just flying through the air, drinking Tecate, holding your thumbs up, like that's one of those bucket list things.
I want to be there right at the start. I've never seen it. I've only seen it from the motorcycle point of view, actually racing the race, but I've never done the 1,000. I did the 500. But the start where you start out and then you basically start through town, then you drop into the wash, and then you ride up the wash.
Right, that's what I'm talking about, the wash, where they hit the wash.
Yes, and then they'll build the jumps that clear like that road, and everybody's all pumped up at that point, and they're just flying and
flat out.
I've driven through that wash on a KX500, literally flat out, and have hit those things and just you sail like
the Iola Car Show, the Bonneville, like be out there for Speed Week and stand at like the 4-mile mark.
Yes.
Right? That's where I want to be at. Like they used to go out like 9 miles. I don't think they go out that far anymore. I think it goes out like 6.
I think it's 5. I think the timed one is 5, but then they have a run out of another 3 miles. But I want to be there. I want to hear the Doppler effect. Yeah. I want to be there at like 4, like you said, the 4-mile mark. So that way you can have the whole Doppler and then hear them go out.
Well, and that's what I want to do is I want to be there where they're not going through the gears. They're wound out high gear.
Yes.
Right. And they're like, that's what I want to watch. LC2 Kids saying, remember the push button audio displays to test out the different receivers and speakers, Crayco, Sparkmatic, Jensen, Audio Box. And what was funny is the car parts stores were the ones that had those stereos. And then you'd go over to places like Circuit City, Best Buy, and they'd have like real stereos like Blah Punk, which used to be a good name, right? Yeah. Let's see. What do I have? I have one in my garage. I can't remember. It's from the 90s.
The JB, the Pioneer. I had all.
Yeah, JBL. Isn't that what it was? Yeah. And then Serwin Vega, and man, all those companies. I think they're probably gone now.
So someone's asking, do you guys have bumper to bumper down there? Funny thing about bumper to bumper, they don't sell bumpers. I've never heard of that one. That's a new one. I've never heard of bumper to bumper.
Bumper to bumper is a Midwest one.
Oh, that's probably why. So
Yeah.
Vintage Adventure Drive says, here's my biggest question. Does anyone know of a resource to help Thumper with his confusion? He keeps thinking he's going to outrun me. He's fallen to magic and voodoo to try to justify his claims. Sorry, man, can't help you on that tech talk. So now that we're doing call outs here, let's shift gears here. What do you think you're going to be running, Tanner, in your car? What do you think it's going to run in the 8th mile? I mean, realistically, what do you think?
So Redwater is saying that they told us everything would be cheaper if we made the stuff in China. Well, to a point, because you get the capitalism in there, right? The company that's running it is paying the Chinese people nothing, and they pass the savings on to you until there's no other competitor in the field.
That's right.
And then they hack you to death.
That's right.
They charge you 10 times more because there's no other place to get it.
Yeah, like the master cylinders for my car, the new American built ones were like $60, and that was in the mid 2000s, right? That's when I actually started buying. That's when I got this one that's on my car right now. The new master cylinder from China is $109 now, and it took 3, and I don't even know if that's a good one yet. That doesn't make any sense. The master cylinder that's on my car was new way back in Kragen days, and it's gone through car after car. Every car I've had that's been a vacuum brake system, it's had that exact master cylinder on. It's how long it's been around, and I believe it was from Kragen, and I believe it's a Bendix. I think it's a Bendix version when Bendix was still American, and it was actually being sold by Kragen Auto Parts. And I spent $60 on it, and I was like, man, that's, everyone said that's too much money. It still works. It literally still works.
When everybody, like, luckily here in our small group, it's like, shh, don't tell anybody. I'll tell you a secret. You can go shopping at the junkyard for some stuff.
Yeah.
It's way better quality
than
you're ever going to get at a parts store.
Yeah. And I've been doing the eBay shopping too. I've been looking for a Bendix or an old, new old stock Mopar one, that's not just been reboxed or something, for master cylinder. I'm to that point now, like literally to that point. So Levi's saying, Ted, I'm not sure what you're racing against him, but if he gets traction in that Pontiac of his, it'll be quick. So what does he have? Do you know?
Thumper?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got the jerk. Remember that? It's like a 68, 69 Le Mans with the blown 455 Pontiac in it?
Oh, yeah.
And instead, it has like, it looks like it says the Judge, but it says the jerk.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yep. Okay, I know which one it is. Let's see, Tanner. It'll be decades. See if there's anything.
Okay. I'm trying to catch up.
Yeah. Oh, so Tanner's saying, I'm not accustomed to 8th mile. I was hoping for low 12s and the quarter before Sykeston. We'll see. Can I make it to the 11th? So if you're in the 11s, that's going to be in the 7s somewhere. Because once you hit a 699, that's a 1099 ish. That's a good rough estimate. So typically a 740, isn't a 740 like 1150? Isn't that what that is?
Yeah, that's probably about right there. 740.
Yeah. I think 740 because that's when you have to have like a roll bar in it. So if you're in the 12s, I'm going to say you're either high 7s or low 8s would be a 12. If I'm guesstimating this right, I think. So that would be pretty decent. An 8 second is a decent run. That's kind of where I started with a lot of my cars before.
If it runs in the 7s, most likely it's no longer a street car.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. And Vintage Adventure Drives. I wish Stumper was here. He would have loved that one. I wish Stumper was here too. I think he stopped kind of just frequenting our lives because it was kind of the same old, but He's probably spraying for mosquitoes right now. Well, yeah, right now. It's not even going to get dark there for another 2.5 hours. So
crank balancing, 56-cylinder, heavy crank with huge counterweight. Is it practical, doable, easy, cheap to significantly lighten an old school crankshaft? Does the benefit exceed the effort cost? No, not for what you're doing because you're not going to RPM it. Even on the Slant 6s, if you're just driving it, the forged cranks are incredibly heavy. They're close to like 90 pounds. Just have it balanced in neutral balance. That's all you need to do on those, and then balance the rods to each other, and then balance the pistons, because you can literally do all the balancing at home. I did my crankshaft for the engine I'm rebuilding. I did with the harmonic balancer and the new flywheel and the clutch bolted onto it. Except for I didn't put the pressure plate in there because I couldn't get it lined up right. But I put everything else on there and I balanced it like that, and I just made it a neutral balance. Plus, for that, it's good.
Yeah. I think what you're also going to find, if you did do that, it would pull so much inertia out of that crankshaft that the car wouldn't even drive the same.
Exactly. And that's one thing I've noticed is that the late model Slant 6s didn't have the same pop as the older ones. For that reason, because the cranks were so much lighter, they would accelerate faster, but they just didn't have the it seemed like the inertia, like off the line movement.
What it is, inertia is stored energy, the stored energy of the crankshaft, right?
Yep, that's right. Yep. So here he goes saying, Buick Smith, I would like to think the L Special would run a 1060 in the 8th with an on-fire V6, but it's not running yet. Well, that 1060, that's actually what I'm hoping for. Is I was 1160s with an engine that was a 7.5 to 1 compression and 2 Hollies through a single exhaust. I'm hoping to drop that by a second with this whole setup now.
That's right. Vintage Adventure Drive is saying that Thumper's taking an early 70s Ventura with a 400. That's right. I remember him telling me that. And that thing is probably going to run pretty good, man. The early 70s Venturas. So it's essentially a Nova, right? Yeah. But it's from the 73 on up Nova platform. So the Buick Apollo, the Pontiac Ventura, the Oldsmobile Omega, and then the Chevrolet Nova.
Yeah, and the Nova is literally an acronym of all those. They put an N in front of all those names.
Yep. And here's what's neat is like that platform is actually not super duper heavy. Mm-hmm. It's fairly light. But it's got an entire subframe in the front is exactly the same as the second gen Camaros.
Yeah. Yeah. Once again, we're 1 hour in. Don't forget WAF Racing. He's the one that makes this happen for us. He's got some really cool stuff coming out over the next few months here. And go check him out. And if you're going to spend money here, please don't go over there, buy something. Some cool merch or something, some plastic thing for your car. He's got some really cool stuff over there. Oh, right. It took me 3 left front calipers to get my dually to fixed. I don't doubt it now. I've heard people have that problem, and I've never had that problem until this weekend. Literally, this weekend was the first time it was part after part after part that was just wrong.
Hey, and Tim Smith here is saying that looking forward to dyno days at SSR before No Name Nationals. Yeah, just a reminder for you folks that live locally to SSR Performance, or maybe even not so local, because I'm about, 4 hours from there?
Yeah, I'm about 4 hours.
They are having a dyno day for us No Name National folk that want to get our junk up on the dyno and make some pulls and see what kind of power it makes. You're looking at August 29th and 30th. Or 29th through the 30th. We're going to have a barbecue and get together and bench race session, and they're going to turn on the lie detector for anybody that's wanting to show up. So we're just going to pound that dyno. Everybody throws in, whatever you can, but preferably $100. And that way you essentially pay for the dyno the whole day, because those guys, while you're dynoing your junk, those guys are going to be doing all the work.
Yeah. So maybe you've already said this, but he said that he's not racing Tanner with the jerk.
Right.
He's racing with the Thumper against the.
Yeah, he's bringing that Pontiac Ventura.
Yeah,
right. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. It should be a good race.
Shane, do you lighten your racing four-cylinder crankshaft? Any benefits? I've actually used on the Slant Six. I've used the cast crank, and it's about 20 pounds lighter. Now, I'm not at the level of Slant Six racing where 20 pounds on a crankshaft, I can even notice it. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not at that level. A lot of people swear by them, but I've shot some nitrous to some. I've built some with some turbos for other people. Even with those, I would never noticed it. So, would you, with a flathead, notice anything? I just don't think so. I'm being real with you. I think take that money and time, put it somewhere else, and then just leave it alone and just make it drive a lot better.
Dude, I think you should do that 170 slant with a lightweight crankshaft.
Well, they never made the.
Yeah, because it's got a shorter stroke. I forgot.
Yeah, they never made that one. So that's the 170, but it's a much lighter crank to begin with because it's a 1 inch shorter stroke. But I think what I'm going to do is take that 170. I'm going to put that in Plan Z, and then
put the turbo on it.
Yes, that's probably
spray it first.
What's that?
Spray it first.
Well,
I think it passes on the bottle on that 170.
I'm literally going to take my suck through turbo because I've got everything for it to build it right now.
Yeah,
and that engine runs. That was the one that was in the Miata, so I know it's a running engine. I'm just going to change the cam, change some springs on it so I can RPM it.
Yeah, take the Tonyism out of it.
Yeah, and I might whack the head, 100,000s because he never really did any of that stuff. It literally is a stock engine.
Yeah, well, I think it'd be cool to up the compression on that sucker, throw a turbo on it, and
let it what I'm doing. And I'll just have a valve job done on the head, and that will be that'll be bitching. That's exactly what I'm going to do with it. Is that right there?
So Paul Pahui saying, does anyone know where I can get a torque converter flushed out or a way to do it to make sure it's clean inside? Okay, I'll tell you how to do this at the homemade way, but Shane will tell you if you bring it over to TCI, they will flush it for you.
That's correct.
And it's like, how much does it cost? $50?
I don't know cost anymore.
It's not very much. I had it done there before.
Shipping's more.
Or you can go down to Hobo Freight, get your, the manual diesel pump that you can put on a 55-gallon drum.
And use diesel.
You can do it with diesel. You can do it with transmission fluid. All you do is take the outlet of that pump and freaking make a coupler that fits down in that neck. And you have your open hole. If you don't have a hole in there yet, drill a hole and tap it. And then put a pipe plug in it when you're done.
Yep.
But just put your outlet from your pump in there and get her sealed up pretty good and crank that sucker and let it just wash all the crap out. And you can literally go from 5-gallon bucket of transmission fluid to 5-gallon bucket of transmission fluid. But as Shane was saying, the cheapest way to do that is probably with diesel fuel. And it's got detergents in it, just like automatic transmission fluid.
And it's super high and it's thin and it cleans. And because I was with you on the ATF, but I see how much ATF is going now for a quart.
Yeah, it's expensive now.
And you can get literally 5 gallons of diesel for literally the cost of 1 gallon of ATF. And I run diesel. I use diesel pretty much as my cleaning solution for everything because it's so cheap and it works so well. I've used it to flush engines. I use it to clean all my parts, all my crankshafts. Everything is cleaned with diesel because it's so cheap.
Let's see.
Vintage Venture Drive says Scamp is only a street car in the loosest terms. It has no interior, no original wiring, 433 gears, and a spool. It means to be a race car. So that's what we would call like a weekend warrior is what I would call that back in the day. That was kind of like your Saturday night special car, 2,500 stall, that type of thing. That's literally what I would street race with a 200 shot of nitrous and a little tighter converter.
So Mohawk here is saying 1974 was the only GTO on an X body platform, which is the Ventura that Thumper, the sweaty fat guy, is bringing to No Name Nationals. I'll propose something here that you guys probably haven't thought of. All right. And it's a very interesting idea. Pontiac was the only holdout from General Motors that was virtually cheating the system up through 74. Right? They had the Super Duty 455 Trans Am that had 11.5 to 1 compression and solid flat tappet cam with ram air 4 heads. there's no effing way that thing passed federal emission standards or did anything on unleaded gas. I'm going to tell you that right now. Could you only imagine if they would have put that sucker in that little Ventura? Like, you could have probably got that. I'd never thought of that, and it hit me just now because every Pontiac engine is the same dimension. I don't know if you knew that. Externally, they're all the same, right? So you could have probably optioned that 455 Super Duty in that Ventura, and it would have weighed 400 or 500 pounds less than that Trans Am. Yeah.
So Plymouth on Plywood saying he was just out doing some slant oiling mods on his from Dolcher's book. That's good. Yeah, I like some of the stuff that he does. Just make sure to do some of the oil pump mods because that really is where it's at. There's a lot more mods there. A lot more things to be made from that as far as power goes. And then on the entry where it comes back into the block, clean all that as it goes down each aisle there, and then move the sending unit for the oil light from there, and then drill and tap that little flat spot that's out back there by the number 4 main. Do that back there, and that's a really good thing to do.
Duxer's saying something pretty interesting here. He says,
where are you at? What
810.
Oh, 810. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Duxer said, I picked up a Snap-on taco cart toolbox, Aviation Mechanics toolbox, and put a Snap-on top box I already had on it. I have used 3 rolls of HF toolbox liner, and I still need more.
Wow.
Dude, that's a lot of area that thing is offering you for a rollable taco cart. Those things, I always liked how you could easily roll them around. The only time it sucks is if you have a driveway with any kind of incline to it.
Yeah. So aren't long rods out of the question for cast cranks too? I believe so, because there's not, I don't think the 198, it was the wider, they're the narrow rods for those too. So yeah, I think, in fact, I have downstairs pistons. I bought someone's project, and it's got the 2.2 Wiseco pistons, and they were made, and they've got reliefs on them, and it's a forged piston. The problem is that it's a cast block, it's a cast crank with those rods, so it's a narrow rod. So I was going to run it, but because of the rods are not the forged rods, they're cast rods, it makes me nervous. So I'm probably going to press those rods off, and I'm going to put it all together on a real block.
Dude, I tell you what would be really cool. What would be cool is if you took those Wiseco pistons and then put does anybody make a aftermarket slant rod?
Yes, but it's for the 225. Now I can have one made.
Can you call Dyers and get 6 170 slant rods and then really turn the wick up on that 170?
Absolutely. I could get those with some, and then with that crankshaft, and I've got studs for it. So yeah, that I would turn it up to.
I honestly think that 170 is the ideal design of the Slant 6. I think that's what I personally feel. It's got a much more comparable bore to stroke. Now, is it going to make the same power as a 225? No. More cubic inches is always going to make more.
But you can RPM it. That's the thing.
That 170, I think you can lean on it hard.
I think you're going to lose the torque, but you're going to gain the horsepower. And I think the gains are going to be greater with the 170 because this 5,500 RPM is not going to be the limit. 6,500 because now it's an over square engine. It's a 3.4 bore with a 3.125 stroke. So it's going to be literally ideal. And plus, with the smaller cubic inch, the head flow is going to be adequate for what it is.
And it's the same piston, right? That you can use in that Wiseco piston in the 170.
Same piston.
So here's my thought on it. I think by turning up the wick on it, I mean like this. You put that 170 together with that Wiseco piston, you get a good aftermarket rod that even if you got to buy 6 rods, that are killer for that combo.
I can design my own rod. Yeah.
I think the ideal thing is at that point, put that sucker, get one of your, oh my God, get the new Edelbrock VRS and get one that's E85 compatible and run it on E85, and don't run an intercooler, but run the biggest freaking turbo you can stick on that setup.
It's going to be a suck through or even a blow through. And I even then, if I run it on gasoline, I still won't need to run an intercooler because it'll just the cooling effect. But I'm going to put it on E85 just for the fact of that. That way I don't have to ever worry about detonating it. I can run as much fuel as I want to.
And I think it would be really cool. It'd be cheap and it'd be fun and affordable. And then it's super duper unique, right?
Yep. That's literally what I was going to do with it. I have this other 225 that I was working on, and I've got a decent cam now. It's 229, 235. I put that in that 170. That's a big cam for that engine with a turbo.
It makes some serious top end power then.
Yes, it would charge. And then, the only thing is, though, is that the dual ultra duals that I have is going back on my car. So I would have to just make some headers for it. And that's really what I just didn't want to do is I have the headers and everything. I would just make them come up to a central flange where it would just spin a turbo. So I'd make them all equal length.
And John Wilburn's here saying that if anybody in this community wants to take advantage of his Torque Flight deal this week, there's still time through 7/13. Call in your CRT parts order to me, and I'll build your core for $500 to No Name Nationals. So if you want to, if I had a Mopar deal, I think this is like a good deal. John's building you a decent transmission using solid parts, right?
And I've taken apart
$500.
I've taken apart a few of Mr. Wilburn's transmissions, and everybody knows that I do my own shit. That I would have Mr. Wilburn no problem build me a transmission because everything that he did on it was quality. And even when some other Nimrod messed with it, nothing that and it failed. It had nothing to do with John's parts. Even his parts were still in perfect condition. Somebody else jacked it up, and it was in left out clutches and a bunch of other stuff. The transmission still worked to a point. So it still was fine and had so everything he had on it was perfectly good. And I took it apart, I autopsied it, and I took pictures and showed it to John and told him exactly what I found. So I have no problem with John building a transmission for me, and I'm pretty sure Dallas wouldn't have a problem with that. So that's saying something.
Buick Smith is here saying, looking at maybe building an oil pump flow tester for the Buicks. Dude, I have wanted to do this for years because Shane and I talked about the load on the drill. And this is the way you could prove it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think this is honestly, I think the best thing to do in this case might be use an old block that still has an intact oiling system, and then you would have to actually measure the flow where it's essentially coming into the number one cam bearing, but then it just returns the oil right back to the sump. So you can do a recirculating system on it and get regulated numbers. I would not do a drill. That's not very accurate. What you need is an electric motor with current applied, and you need to take that current and figure out volume flow rates with the current, right? So that way you have some kind of knob that you can select flow rates on.
Well, you can rent gallon per hour flow meters. Literally, it's just a turbine. If you get a gallon per hour or gallon per minute flow, and then you know how many watts it takes to turn that as far as an amp load and with wattage, you can figure out the work.
But you do need the oil pump being turned by an electric motor that's on like a rheostat, because you have to know the current load to take, or that the motor is using to put that in some kind of measurable term, right? Because I think, honestly, this is one of those things where you could do multiple modifications to oiling systems and then check and see what happens with each individual one.
Yeah, and it makes a difference. I literally have done it with a drill, and I've done it with an amp gauge, and it is a massive difference. It's still going to save the same amount of fluid, but it's doing it more efficiently.
Yeah, and less load.
Yeah, and it's done by load. And just if you're not popping off that bypass valve, and it just takes less work to do everything. It just gets it there more efficiently.
Well, what's neat about that is once you come up with like a graph where you can figure out how much current is being used to pump it at this flow rate, then you can take that same timing cover, put it on an engine, put it on a dyno. Now all you need to do is dyno at one time and you could measure the horsepower difference between the two because it could all be mathematically figured at that point. Because once you have current and RPM and flow rate,
temperature, you can need temp though.
Yeah, well, the temperature has to be the same.
Always the same, yeah. So when you're doing this testing, just make sure that if you're going to test it on 180 degrees, get that oil to 180 degrees, and use the same oil.
It might be easier to heat the oil in the rig than it would be to try to keep the oil on the engine cool.
Yes. So get it to 180 degrees because that's usually what people do. It's 180 oil and water temperature is kind of like the standard that most people do. And that's kind of how we do it. So that way it's always the same metric. It's between 175 and 180. Vinci Venture Drive says the 170 was the original slant six. The engineers behind it hated the 225 because they knew it would have problems, at least per certain sources I've heard from. I've never had any problems with the 225. To me, they just never really RPM. They just don't have enough head flow. They make great torque. You don't RPM them because there's just not enough head flow. And by back cutting the valve and doing some things, you can get 20 more CFM out of it. But is it enough for 225 from 170? Not at all. Not even the slightest.
The 225 was fine for what you got to remember what you're talking about here. This thing came in economy cars and it was Chrysler's economy car answer to the General Motors economy cars. That little Buick like I got was the economy car from General Motors. It was Corvair. It was the Nova. That's the kind of market it was intended for. And all those cars came with a small 6-cylinder, and the Chrysler was no exception. The only problem with the 225 is they based everything off 170. All the math was off the 170. And then they just, I don't know, I hate to say this, they band-aided it by adding a taller deck height and more stroke and expected it to be that much better. And it didn't work out that way.
Yeah, it was literally just all it did was make torque. But now I don't remember this gentleman's name or his handle or anything, but at the last known in Nationals, we started up a car, and we broke in the cam, the engine. Do you remember
in that Valiant, the early Valiant?
Yeah. Do you remember his name?
Yeah, that was Don and Ron English.
Yeah. Okay. So he has an aluminum block. He's been trying to get me to build that thing forever. Here's the problem with them: is I've seen one built in my life in front of me. There's been all these different ones, but the one that was built in front of me, they have open decks on them, and they literally will blow the head gasket for no other reason than just because it's a Tuesday at 2:00, because it's an open deck, and I just don't even want to mess with it because of that. You're not really gaining a shit ton by it having aluminum block because you still have a cast iron head that weighs a shit ton.
They suffer from the same kind of stuff that the Buick 215 suffered from, and that's early engineering with aluminum casting.
Yeah.
Right? They were sleeves they put the sleeves in and cast the block around the sleeves, and then it just kind of adhered to the sleeves. Yeah. Right? And they had all these porosity issues because the aluminum didn't flow like the cast iron. They were actually being made by Alcoa, right, which was pioneering all of this technology. But the problem was they were just learning at that point. They were going to make all kinds of dumb mistakes when they just start learning, right? So that the aluminum slant suffered from the same problems that GM stuff did. And that's why they actually sold it to the Brits, was they just didn't have the technology at the time. And it was, if you think about it, 6 years later when they finally got the technology right and they started casting the ZL 1427 aluminum blocks. That's when that happened. But these early years, man, they're just crawling.
Yeah, it says, I have some 104 Wiseco pistons on order for this build too. So that's because he's actually building up here. He was talking about he's building a long rod, I guess. So where he's a 198 or something.
And he's also saying that you can run a 198 crank and a 170 possibly.
Yeah, you can. Oh yeah, people have done that, but I don't want the stroke. Because I
agree. I think the perfect bore to stroke ratio for that slant motor is that 170.
Yeah, because you're not gaining much because it's a 375 stroke. So now you have an under square engine again. I'd rather have the over square engine take the hit on the
Right.
stroke, but I get the RPM, and then
You
I'm
got
going to turbocharge it.
Yep. I'm right there with you. I think with the engine being smaller and more compact, think about the advantages of that shorter deck. One, the block is more rigid because it's smaller.
Yep.
Right.
It's
Two,
exactly.
what the other big thing is oil returning from the valve train at the top is not going to take forever. It takes less time. Right. And so you're going to have less starvation issues. The engine itself is going to be the oil is going to flow better just because it has less surface area to cover.
Mhm.
There's so many advantages to having the short deck block.
Yeah. And I'm going to, with that 170, and in fact, that's kind of where I just kind of stepped back and started working on that green car, because I was like, that 170 is a running engine, and it was in the Miata, and it ran just fine. And I believe that Wilburn is the one that found that for him.
Yeah, he was.
Huh?
He was.
He was, yeah. So, and I believe that that's a running engine that's literally factory. I don't think he did anything to it. I don't think he changed the cam in it at all. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do with it. I think that's a great idea. So Race says, Dallas, I'm remembering right, was the high volume upgrade to Buicks for swapping in W block gears?
Yeah, he's talking about the W Chevrolet 89 348 and 409. Not that I know of. What I am aware of is the small blocks, the 215, 300, 350, 340 Buick, and then the V6s all used 455 gears.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 455 use a 1/4 inch taller gear, is what I am aware of, and that was it. But that's all I'm aware of there. If that was the early fix, I'm unaware of it. But the Buick oil pumps do have like a Chevrolet Shark Tooth style gear.
Yeah. Oh, right. Danny Boyd is relaxing with a small glass of Patron Silver tequila. Man, I'm telling you, that's the one thing I do miss about use the word being sober, but just not drinking anymore, is literally tequila. That was I love tequila on the beach.
I think Dean Stevenson saying that the slant was designed as a 225 from day one. The short deck 170 was trimmed. I don't think that's true.
Well, he was talking up above there. He was talking about how it was for the flatheads. It's got the same bearing, same length camshaft, same this, same that. I just don't know, because it was literally designed for the 170, and that's what every engineer, the guy who designed the Slant 6, that's what he said. They just needed more torque out of it to put it in the trucks, and that's why they came with the 198 for the heavier vehicles, and then they put the 225 in the trucks. And that's not me saying that. That's regurgitating what someone else said. And it just didn't have the same power because of the head. The head just went RPM. And I want the RPM. If I'm putting a turbo on a slant, I want that thing to RPM.
I think we should just go balls out crazy on 170.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Dry sump oiling system, every little thing that you can make and do. I think it would be awesome.
Well, I'm going to keep it with I'm going to have a deep sump pan in it. So I've already got the pan made. I'll change all that. I'll change everything, but I'm going to keep it as light as possible, because it'll be a lighter engine. It'll have about 3 quarts more oil is what it's going to have. And I'm going to be able to just, I'm going to put a 650 carb on it on a suck through. And then if I do a blow through, then I just, run something different. But right now for the suck through, it'll be a 650 going through that 300 cubic inch turbo, which will be way more than that 170 could use. And I run it at 10 pounds of boost. It's going to be perfect. And I really think that car might actually maybe get into this, maybe 7s in the 8th mile. I think it might.
Oh, that would be cool. Something else that dawned on me on what is a benefit of that 170, besides losing all the cubic inches of torque, is that the deck being shorter, it makes it easier to work on the distributor side of it, right?
Yeah, it does. It's a big difference. And it just makes sense, because Plan Z is all about weight, right? It's all about how light it is. The 170
is the smallest engine you could possibly find.
That's exactly right. And that's the 170 for Slant 6. So that's really kind of the home run.
Watson to 2B says if you have a 170 aluminum block, you got a block smuggle out of Mom Opar's experiment lab. The 225 was the only aluminum engine that he knows.
Was it a 225? Was it the aluminum one?
The aluminum ones were. So that makes me wonder here. Okay, so the downside to the aluminum block is the open deck surface, right?
And they blow head gaskets constantly.
Okay, now here's something that's you can think of because there's a lot of engines aftermarket that have, or not aftermarket. There's a lot of engines made currently that have open decks, like Hondas, right? Like North Star Cadillac has an open deck. They fixed that by putting in those keyed sleeves, right? And then they cut part of the block and put some kind of billet block structure on there.
Or you could just put dowels in each corner.
Well, if it's a 225 is the only aluminum block, can't you deck that thing and then re-sleeve it and put a 170 setup on it with a billet head space, like the block surface, the deck surface?
Probably, but the only thing would be where the head studs or the head bolts go into. I don't know how big long those bosses go down.
Huh. Yeah, I bet they're deep, dude. I bet their casting is similar.
Yeah.
I bet you it's deep.
So Levi is asking a question here, and this is actually a really good answer here. How long do you think a 6-liter would last at 8,500 RPM NA? I would love to rev an LS crazy high and see what happens. Here's the thing. The engine's going to last. What gives up the ghost and that makes the engine fail is the oil. It gets too thin, it goes into shear, and then it just doesn't coat as well, and it foams up. If you could get it to where you keep the oil cool so it doesn't heat up, doesn't start to shear, and then 2, you have enough oil to where it doesn't foam, it doesn't become a liquid like as far as like water, consistency of water. It's going to last a long time as long as you keep the parts cool, because the oil does 2 things, lubricate and cool. When it gets too hot, it just transfers the heat over and things get hot, metal touches, it goes kaput.
It'll kill your valve train. That's will be the first thing that fails.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And it'll be the valve springs will start smoking, and that's why you start seeing the smoke coming out of the valve cover. Is literally that. As the springs overheat, then they crack, then they fail. So if you're going to do
oil
this,
will boil on those valve springs.
Yeah, I would put oil sprayers on it, but I would have like a dry. The only way this would survive is a dry sump system for an extended period of time.
You need to control all the windage, have none, because you can't aerate the oil at that kind of RPM, because like literally one bubble of oil and you're freaking wiping bearings and then the rod's coming out.
Yep. And if you could put it on a dry sump, just all you would need is just one going into the cam, one going into the mains, and then a sprayer up on top for 8,500 RPM, and it would be fine. It would last for a very long time like that.
We were rooting for you last year when you started putting together the heifer. Shane and I were rooting for you because we wanted you to take that 6-liter block and put that 4.8 crank in the thing and build this. What is the D stroke? What is it? 326?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, you could spin to the moon. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that would, and with a ton of RAM on it, and oh my God, you would murder them. You would murder them in the Triple Crown.
Oh,
it would make so much mid-range power.
So Ryan Peterson, aka Turbo Valiant 66, has gone all out on both. Last I knew, his 225 was 530 rear wheel horsepower. Wow,
yeah, Ryan came to the Slanted Nationals with his Valiant. Remember that like pinkish Valiant?
That's him. Yeah,
that's him. Remember we sat and drank beer with that guy.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know his name, but that's cool. I think that's awesome. I remember he was there trying to set a record, and he did set a record, didn't he?
The car ran 6:30 in the 8th, and that was as fast as my T-Bird was at the time.
Yeah,
and it ran a 6:30 in the 8th, but it was slant 6, not direct injected. It had multi-port fuel injection and an intercooled turbo setup, and was running 35 pounds of boost.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Also, now I've never heard of this. This is actually the first time I've heard of this. I've always been told that this was false, but if this is true, they made an experimental aluminum head for the slants that never went into production. They experimented on die casting on a 170, but None were produced. The only aluminum was the 225. Okay, so I had no idea that they even thought about making an aluminum head for those things.
Let's see here. Dean Stevenson says the Allpar site says the slant was a unique design. It wasn't. It was the home, or it was the same engine underneath as the 23 and 25-inch flathead with an overhead valve head and the same bearings and cam positions. And it's also leaned over at a slant, because I don't think those flatheads were slants, were they? They were straight up and down, the flathead Mopars.
Yes. Yeah. The only reason why they leaned it over, as I was told, is for the hood line, and also too so they could move the water pump back. So that's why the water pump's offset and back, was to get the hood line lower and to get it so that it would fit into the early A bodies, was to make it for that short engine compartment and wouldn't hit and then they could put a fan on it.
I always thought it, and this is just me thinking outside the box here, but it was that way they could have an inline. Okay, if you have an inline 6 engine, you can put a V8 in that engine compartment, no questions asked. Yeah. If you have a straight 6 engine, you can put a V8 in that, no problem. If you have a V6 engine, you can't put a V8 in that, right? So I always thought the Mopar idea behind it was they had enough engine bay with a low hood line, but still had the torsion bar front suspension. That was the big one, right? Because they wrote that. You remember torsion bar. If you've ever ridden in like a GM coil spring setup and then ridden in something with torsion bars, it is a night and day difference. It's so much smoother, right? The torsion bar is. It's actually, I think it might be like the best engineering design out of all that. But that was a big thing back then, was the ride quality.
Yeah.
And I think that's what that engine bay was made for, the economical small 6-cylinder engine in a torsion bar car. And I think that's why they did that.
Yeah. Clayton's Toolbox is actually a really good question. Just out of curiosity, what it would take to make a 5.7 heavy rev to 8,500 RPM? Literally, if you really want to know, change the pistons, change the rods, put head studs, main studs into it, and put really good springs in it, because the factory valve train is good to 8,500 RPM. And while we know that because we've tested it many, many times, in fact, when we do our testing for our lifters, it sits at 85. We do a 10 million cycles that goes from 2,500 to 8,700 RPM and back down. And it does that for weeks and weeks and weeks. So it is a stable valve train to 8,500. That's up to about 600 lift, about 150 to 175 on the seat. Let's call it 450, 500 over the nose. That's all you really need to do on those. And then get a really, really, really good oil pump. Get one of those billet Moroso pumps. Other than that, or just get the Hellcat oil pump. With one of that, that's all you really need to do. And it will go to 8,500 and it will live there and it'll be fine.
Doug's for saying GM Performance Parts at one time remade the ZL1 aluminum block. The bare block weighed 110 pounds. That's saying a lot because the Chevrolet big block is heavy, dude.
Yeah.
I want to say that is one of the heaviest blocks out there. Here, I'll throw an interesting fact since Doug threw that at me. The 215 Buick Complete, all assembled as run with the aluminum block, weighs 315 pounds. The complete engine.
Oh, one more thing on this I forgot to mention is lifters. If you run short travel lifters, run them about 10 to 15 off the bottom instead of the normal 20, and you'll be fine. And then get the clamps for the rock arms, because the rock arms are only held in there by the angle of the push rod, and they have clamps that clamp onto that. I'm sorry about those two things, but if you got those, that's an 8,500 RPM engine all day long.
Let's see. SSR Performance says thing about turning an LS over 8,000 RPM, it gets expensive quick. It's all going to be valve train probably.
Yeah, and that's exactly where that's what makes the Hemi so much better. Is because of the shaft mount rockers onto the head. Is that it's that stable.
Dust Devil Garage saying I was at the Slanted Nationals. I love the slant dragster. Dude, I'm telling you, if I could have done a Slanted Nationals the second year, I would have done it, because it was just so unique and fun.
Yeah.
And that first year, man, you know what really killed that event? The weatherman coming out saying it was going to rain the whole weekend, right? And everybody stayed at home.
Yep.
And it rained that weekend,
but it was
at
beautiful.
Saturday from like midnight to 2 in the morning. And then the next day, we were racing. Barkley was out there cleaning water up at 6 in the morning, and we were ready to race by like 8. So
it was beautiful. And it was like a nice day. It wasn't hot. It was perfect.
That was a really, really good event. It was fun. I wish the swap meet and car show should have been better because there was a lot of people didn't come, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I had planned, I don't know if I've ever really talked about any of this stuff I did for AHRA like during this. I had planned for the Slanted Nationals. I had worked out. I was wanting to have the semi truck from the movie Duel pull in the gate and honk the horn.
That'd be beautiful.
Right? And the only problem was the guy's like the dude that owns the truck. I contacted him, right? And he was like, I want to do this so bad. Right? I'm like, I'm right there with you. I would love to see what everybody would do. It was $2,500 in fuel one way to get that truck there, dude. And if I could have pulled it off, I would have done it.
Yeah.
I thought that would have been one of the coolest things ever.
I lost you for a second. Okay. Here's one more. Clayton's Toolbox. The hydraulic lifters just aren't going to go to 8,500 reliability without some lightweight valves. The only thing about that is nowadays is that we have low shock masters that are designed just for this, for that type of spring pressure I was just mentioning before. And if you do the off the bottom, basically bottom it out and bring it up 15 off the bottom or 20 thousandths off the bottom, you will be able to get to that level of RPM. And we've done that with a lot of engines for the guys that have to run these hydraulic lifters, because there's a lot of classes now that are doing circle track with LSs. And that's how we're doing it and getting that kind of RPM out of them is with it, because they have a spring rule and they have a few other rules. And it has to have a hydraulic lifter, and they're able to go 8,500 RPM with the low shock and those lifters, short travels off the bottom.
Doug's just saying, Dizzy was talking about like a Copo Chevrolet car, the ZL1 stuff, and Doug's just saying, Dizzy, very cool up here. We had the big hitter for GM was Berger Chevrolet. They sold Copo cars there, more than likely where the ZL1 came from. My little hometown area, we had an Air Force base, and they used to have like the B-52 stuff, right? The big planes, the bombers out of there, and they had chasers for those, and they would order them for the local Chevrolet dealership. And one year they ordered like 68 or 9 was 2 wagons. Right? It was a Chevelle wagon, Malibu wagon, 427, aluminum 427 4-speed. And the guys in the motor pool, they would take the car out and street race all the local guys and then go back to the base, right? Before anybody noticed that they'd even left. But that car, when they closed the base, that car went up for auction. And dude, there was people clamoring to get it because it was what the Copo program was designed for, right? Is that kind of car. You still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Was, central office production order. The U.S. government pulled in and needed a chaser plane, or a chaser car for their big plane. So they built a freaking crazy hot rod wagon, and they used it to chase those planes.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I was listening to you and trying to read through some of these to see if you remember I was talking about somebody. This actually helps me out because I didn't know this. I thought it was 440, but all sciences share the same long rod flathead technology with the Hemi 426 bearing. So remember we were talking about the bearings?
Yeah, you and I were talking about the Mopar bearing or the big block bearings.
Yeah, if this is correct, then that helps on the mains. I just need to find a way to get the rod bearings. And that way, if they get rid of all this stuff.
Well, measure the bearing.
Well, it's got special holes in it, though. That's the thing about it, because it's got an oil squirter hole. So
Does the later rods have those?
the later rods do, but they're narrower. That's for the rods. Yeah,
That's the one I would use. If you're doing a daily, I would use that small, lightweight rod that's thinner. Oh, well, you know what? You got to have the newer crank, right?
yeah. Or see, that's the thing. The one I have down there, it's got the late model crank and it's got the late model block. So for like a daily driver, that's what I would want is that one because it's lighter. So like the engine that I would like to put into the green car would probably be that block and that crank and those rods that I have down there because it's 20 pounds lighter crank, and that's what I'll put into the green car eventually is that engine and make it a 225 with my stick shift because that way it RPM it'd be a lot lighter thing, and the flywheel is only 25-pound flywheel on that because it's the smaller style flywheel. So
Yeah.
that would be the hot ticket.
Oh,
Question. Okay. Does the location of the O2 sensor matter for the AFR gauge? The manifold I'm using has a spot for O2 sensors, but they are for factory 90 Fords and 150 sensors. Yes. You can put them in there as long as I try to get them to where all of them merge together so I can get a better average. Sometimes the OEs will have them way up too soon, but you want to have it before the catalytic converter and also too before any extra flanges. So that way there's no air being sucked in or any type of oxygen happening before that. So I would have it like as close to the flanges, the longest, farthest part away where there's a merge, but the farthest away from the flange upstream as you could be. So that way nothing comes back in and give you a bad reading.
I think those things. I've been messing around with O2 sensors forever, right? Like I was playing with fuel injected 5-liter Fords, like when they were new. The easiest thing to do is, all right. I'll tell you the pitfalls everybody has. Okay, non-ball and socket like pipes. Okay, because people will put flange gaskets, and if it gets any air in there, it fucks the whole metering up, but like the reading. Okay. The other thing is, you generally want it with only, it's got to be in the first pipe coming out of the exhaust manifold or the header or whatever. Literally the first pipe. No other fittings before it. No leaking exhaust manifolds, because that's where people fail too. Is you have a header leak. Well, it's lean then at that point, or rich. I'm sorry, rich.
And then get it before the flange, so as far away from that flange upstream, because when it's idling, especially if there's an overlap, say it's on the passenger side, you're going to get a point there where there's going to be kind of a backfill in there. And it could read,
if
that air being pulled back
just
in.
Doing one O2 sensor and it's reading both banks of the engine, go after the Y. Go 6 inches after the Y.
Yeah.
Okay. And then make sure it has 18 to 24 inches of pipe past the O2 sensor, so it's not reading the atmospheric air beyond the pipe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Luke Smith says something really cool here. I wish I would have thought of that. Dallas, it would have been awesome for the dual tanker truck to bring the race fuel for the slanted nationals.
That'd have been great.
That would have been epic, right? I mean, like that's the kind of thing where, that would have been a home run for real. That would have been on PRI's freaking newsletter. That would have been awesome. But yeah, like I said, I got a hold of the guy. I had it all worked out. He actually had the dates. He takes the trucks to car shows around the country. But it was $2,500 for him to tow from North Carolina to Missouri. And I just, had it not been the first year of the No Name Nationals, it had been the second or third, and I had an idea of how that was going to fall out, I could have probably made that happen.
Yeah. No, I'm confused here. Could you did I miss something about this? Professor P and Dallas let me in, so I shouldn't be surprised.
I don't know. Dean always says weird stuff, so I just kind of take it. If I understand it, okay, great. If I don't, all right, I move on, and I expect Dean to throw weird stuff at me.
Okay, Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't say anything derogatory. I mean, I would apologize. I didn't know if we said anything bad. I don't know.
No, I think it's referring to like we let him in the chat.
Oh,
You shouldn't be surprised by whatever else somebody else is saying.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. But Dean is our kind of weird, eclectic kind of dude that has mucho knowledge on just strange things.
Well, that sounds like this whole chat. We're all.
It is pretty much this whole chat. He fits in with us. Like, if you ever saw the No Name National shirt that John made for him, it's upside down because he lives in New Zealand. So they made the entire shirt upside down on purpose for him.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Indirect Connection says, if someone comes up with a truck and trailer, I can drive it. I'll pull the tanker every day with hazmat. It would be fun.
Dude, that would be great, wouldn't it?
Like, yes, that would be good.
Maybe we should do that again and get the slanted nationals rolling, except for we just kind of broaden the horizons and let the I wanted to do the second year, honestly. I wanted to make it bigger because after just doing the slanted nationals, it was too focused. It was too narrow.
Yeah.
It needed to be broader. I wanted to do an inliner nationals is what I really wanted to do.
Yeah, called the 6-shooter shootout. You know what I mean?
Well, it didn't have to be a 6-shooter because do you remember when we showed up for the No Name Nationals the weekend before they had that Boot Hill Fuel and Gas drags? You may not have been there for that.
No, I wasn't there for that.
Okay, I was there. They had a dragster there that had a 4-cylinder. It was a GM 292 straight 6 with 2 cylinders cut off.
Oh, that's awesome.
You could buy them in a boat. The engine was made for a boat, but someone took all of the race parts from the 292 straight 6, and they took the Hillborn fuel injection, cut it down for a 4-cylinder, put it on that thing. They put a magneto on it from like the 292 on that thing. They had a huge cam made for this thing. Well, they took it out. It's in a rail dragster, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they towed it up to the starting line and started it up, and it sounded just like a 4-cylinder, like blah, 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 blah. And then they wound it up. And I mean, dude, there was every eyeball in the place was this fucking big. This thing hit probably 11,000 RPM. And I mean, I had never heard anything like it at the drag strip in my life.
Wow.
It sounded so amazing.
You know, you could call it the less than equal to 6. So, you know,
I just thought I wanted to include shit like that dragster.
Yeah.
That thing was so awesome, man.
The 6 or last shootout, you know what I mean? That would be kind of cool.
But you know, that thing, I asked him what's in it. He said, "Well, it's a 292 Chevrolet, which has like the same, I don't remember, I can't remember. It's got its own. It's something like it falls in the same family of the small block Chevrolet,
305 probably or something like that.
No, it's got a big 4-inch bore, I think is what it was.
Oh, so that's 350.
Right, but it has like these long rods, like a 6-inch long rod, and then it's got a really short stroke, so it's almost like a 2-to-1 rod to stroke ratio on it.
Oh, I gotcha.
And I'm telling you, I asked him, like, how much compression has it got? And he's like, all of it, 16-to-1. And I'm like, my God,
Yeah.
No wonder you got to run it on methanol. But dude,
Venture Drive says he's got a 4-cylinder Pinto he could bring and have fun like at events like that. Yeah, right here. There you go. The Inline Nationals.
Yeah, that's what I was wanting to do, is something like that.
Yeah.
That's what I said earlier, was the Inliner Nationals.
Oh, you did? Is that what you said? Okay.
Yeah. And you were like, no, it should call it like 6 greater than 8. And I'm like, no.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The Inliner Nationals. Yeah. So, dude, that would be kind of cool, because they actually, Gill Welding is putting on they do it every year. They've been doing it for 2 years now. It's called they go to 3 slant 6 different tracks over the months. I would like to go to at least 1 or 2 or 3 of those things with Plan Z next year, and that's going to be probably my goal with the 170 and a turbo, because I literally have everything to finish it right now.
Well, they got that slant group that runs around and races at. They're going to be at Clay City, Kentucky this year in September.
Maybe that's probably them. Gill Welding's the one that puts it on. They have a whole point system and everything for it. I think that would just be fun, Because it's like you said before, I have more fun in slower cars than I ever did in fast cars,
Well, and it's I think it was like those. It's harking back to those days when you were in high school, and you were literally just throwing the slicks in the trunk, drive to the track, hopefully not blow anything up, and then race all day and get your 57 time slips in one afternoon, and everybody's they're like, God, this guy again, and the announcers are going, dude, that thing's so hot, I can see the oil pan glowing. Like let it cool off.
Yeah. And like that way too, you could everything's cheaper because a 904, you do a decent tune-up on one, they'll handle 500 to 600 horsepower, and a slant six at high RPM is not going to maybe 400 or 500, let's call it. So it's going to be under its threshold, totally fine. And then an 8 3/4 out back is definitely going to handle that. In a super light vehicle, it's going to be like you don't have to worry about anything like that at all. It just makes it more fun. Is all I'm trying to do. See here, we're getting close to the time, man. It just flown.
Yeah, it's flown by, especially this past hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, 904. John saying 904 for the win, but
agreed.
904 gobbles up the least amount of power out of all the automatics, with the exception of the Power Glide.
That is correct, 100%. That is absolutely correct, and that's me and John just knew that we were like good friends right when we talked about the 904 when we were at that hotel room for PRI, because we both love the 904. In fact, it's always been my most favorite transmission is the 904 for that reason. I've got plenty of them downstairs.
Well, I tell you what's not my favorite transmission, the C4 Ford. I'm tired of them. I think I'm going to put a turbo 400 in that Buick, or in that T-Bird.
He's saying, Shane, you were talking about the 225 RPM. That's not what I was saying. It's just it's not as easy as what I was saying. True, but if I remove the fixed fan and went with electric fan, I swear I'd pick up 500 RPMs. Exactly. It really comes down to the cylinder head is what I'm talking about.
The head flow is terrible.
Yeah, so whatever you do to the cylinder head for that, it was designed around the 170. So if I do the exact same things and put it on a 170 as I do on 225, I will just pick up that much more, with the 170. And if you're putting on a turbo, that's what you want. You don't want a big stroke on a turbo. You want RPM for a turbo, and that's literally what I'm going to do. 904 and 8 1/4.
Yeah. Well, okay. Don't forget, John Wilburn's doing his transmission build. So if you're a Mopar fan and you want some good parts from Cope Racing Transmission, you've been considering buying them, contact John Wilburn. He will build you a complete transmission.
$500.
$500.
$500. Yeah. John Wilburn said Shane has CRT Transbrake 001, and one day I'm going to show that. I'm going to send it back to him to get it freshened up at some point. But it's not even lasered. It's nothing like that. I made him put them in there. I told him he needed to number these, and it's literally stenciled in there with the little gun 001, and it's literally in there for like that.
Racer Racing a late model Hemi head swap on a 225 slant.
Nah.
Shane and I talked about this in like an aftermarket head for it. It doesn't have like standard bore spacing. It changes throughout the whole entire engine like twice.
And also too, the biggest problem you're going to have is how far down those lifters are to where the deck surface is at. So anytime to put a cross flow on that is going to be rather hard, because especially a Hemi head, because one push rod's going to have to come this way. And it's going to go right through a water jacket. So it would have to be a wedge head of some sort. And the only way that's going to work is have the intake on the leaning side. That's going to be crappy because on this side it's going to be the exhaust, because that's where all the rock arms are going to be. It's just not feasible in most vehicles. Maybe if you did a one-off thing for rail, it's not feasible. If you could just get one to where you get rid of some of the water around the ports, so that way you can open it up more than 1/8 of an inch. That's really what's going to come down to, and it's just not worth the time, because if you go through one of those ports, the head's just destroyed at that point. So,
I'll only say, everyone give Dallas $100 at No Name Nationals for their AHRA dues, and let's get the AHRA back on track, dude. I hate to say this, Colin, but I don't think there's enough people at No Name Nationals to really get that thing. Like, well, I guess if everybody handed me $100, I bet if there's 150 people there, that's quite a bit of cash. So maybe they could, but This year we are going to have to do something. I'm going to have to figure something out. And Shane and I already talked about something. I actually we've already came up with a pretty good plan to do something. I just don't know if I'm going to have the time to do it while going to school. I'd like to get some school under my belt and see how awesome that's going to be. Because right now I'm in crisis management mode.
Yeah.
Trying to get Dallas back on financial track and safe.
Yeah. And with that, we're at our 2-hour mark. Thanks, guys, for showing up. Don't forget, go see Mr. Woff Racing. Right now, he's in Montana, getting ready to do that whole race. Go see Mr. John
Is that the
Wilburn.
Rocky Mountain Race Week?
Yes. Go see Mr. John Wilburn on his channel, 7 Central, on Friday nights. And don't forget, once again, like we've said it many, many times, if you want a transmission right now is the time to buy it until the 13th, and because it will only cost you $500 to get it built, as long as you're using the CRT parts. So, you got anything else you want to say, man?
Nah, that's about it. I don't have anything new coming out. We will get Clint's Long Rod 300 done here soon. I should be breaking in some engines, like one right after the next, after the next, after the next. So,
yeah. And I did let the cat out of the bag about with Plan Z with the 170, but me and Dallas have been talking about for over a year now, literally over a year. And I just decided that's what I'm going to do. Literally this last weekend. So that's just look forward to that. When the green car is done, Plan Z comes back in, 170 is going in, turbocharged. I'm going to take it apart, just inspect it, and make sure it's good to go for high RPM and turbocharging.
Dude, I'm telling you, them Wiseco pistons and call dyers and get your rods made, man, and have something awesome.
Yeah. So, all right, with that, guys, you guys take it easy. You guys see you next week. Have a good one.